If you're successful in meditation, because there isn't a lot of books out there that tell you, well, here's how to be, here's what is successful. This is what you do. So I think me trying to learn how to meditate, for me, a lot of in the beginning it was just like kind of feeling like I'm sitting there being a fool, because I'm like sitting there going, okay, and just wait, but not sure what I'm waiting for. But I'm like Pam, I hear a lot more than I'll ever see in my head, and that was kind of the question. I always thought I was supposed to see stuff in my head. I was supposed to.
That's the thing about being an individual. I mean, what works for one person may not necessarily work for everybody else.
Yeah.
You have to find that.
Some people are visual thinkers.
Right, some people are. Some people are auditory, internally auditory. I mean, that's what makes us individuals. So you can't, what works for you, stay with. Don't try to make yourself do something because somebody else says this is the way to do it. Because it may work for them, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Well, a lot of people always say you've got to get to that dark place, where there's nothing, the void.
Well,
I've never got there because before I get there, I start hearing stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just sit and be quiet and listen, and
Right.
I never get to that other point.
They say you're not doing it right unless you have no thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've never got to that point.
Yeah, well, see, that's why, that's why I say there are as many methods of meditation as there are methods of meditation. And if you have if you have a practice that works for you, stay with it. Just because the book says, you should really be doing it this way, if what you're doing is effective and works for you, I personally do not advocate trying to change to something that is at best marginal.
I don't hear, or I don't really see. It just comes.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't come in words, it's just there. And the only time I ever really hear is when I'm doing something that I don't realize I'm doing and I need correction. I was sitting in my office one day, and we just finished a really hard project. And I'm thinking, boy, we sure did good. And they said, who did good? You? And I knew, I was taking credit for what my people did. But I was there doing that, so they would chastise me in that way. But when I sit and meditate, I don't hear all that, I just know.
Yeah. See, and something I might inject at this point, in the course of these lessons and explanations and guidance and whatever, and Sparrow may attest to it, I may not always be here. I may blank out, and there will be someone else who is teaching you. That's happened before. So depending on the questions that you pose, that may go beyond the boundaries of the current work that we're reading and studying. The answer may require an input from another source. And Sparrow, I think, will attest that does on occasion happen. So we will endeavor to always try and be forthright and answer your questions, no matter how many levels we have to bring in to effectively satisfy your curiosities. Because you're here to learn, and I would love to see you learn. I mean, you already are accomplished, but there's so much more that you can do. So, any more questions?
I thought of something, but I can't
Just,
put it into words.
just say whatever, just as it comes to you.
Unlike Pam, I hear things and then I see a picture that goes with what I'm kind of like hearing, not like words, but like you hear, it is like words, you just hear words. But I said to myself when it first started happening that I would trust it as long as I didn't get any like negative or bad information, and I never
Right.
So, what I'm wondering is, like, can the dark side pose as the light, or?
Well, here's the thing, here's something that somebody once told me, that if you're in a meditation and you're receiving information and you're not quite sure about the information that's coming in, instead of questioning it or whatever, or challenging it, instead of working on it, just put it on a shelf. In time, it will prove or disprove itself.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I never have gotten any negative
Yeah, but it's
information.
a-
I've gotten a few lectures about
Yeah,
changing things that I was doing, but.
yeah, but that's the most practical approach to it. If you're not really certain, don't dismiss it or just put it on a shelf. It will prove or disprove itself.
And as long as you do things to protect yourself, you should be reasonably safe, right?
What do you, as far, protect yourself how?
Well, like I do the tubaline, the violet flame, and several different things, you know.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those, and I'm also familiar with doing the Kabbalistic cross, which is a great protective rite.
I hadn't heard of
No,
that.
what is that?
Oh, yeah, it comes from the Kabbalistic, and it's the, you are creating a cross on yourself that extends upward into infinity, downwards through all the worlds, extends outward through all the all the dimensions of light, and it's done in Hebrew, but you can translate it into English, and it's a creative visualization is what makes it effective. And as you're doing it, and it's a great protection. I've recommended to people who were concerned about personal protection and whatever, and it's effective. And what you effectively are doing is you're making the sign of the cross, and you're saying, Ate, Malkuth, Vegebura, Vegetula, Leolam, Adonai. And translated, it says, Thou art the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever and ever, O God.
That sounds like something we heard in the Catholic Church.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
power of the kingdom.
yeah, yeah. And the Hebrew has been in use considerably longer than the English. But if you make the correspondence to the between English words and the Hebrew, and doing the creative visualization, the effect is basically the same. Because what you're doing is you're making a cross through yourself that extends out to unlimited boundaries.
Could you
Okay,
say
is
those
it-
words one more time in English?
Thou art the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
What,
No, you're
for
doing
heaven
the-
and ever,
Yeah, forever and ever.
forever and ever, what are you protecting yourself from?
Well, I had somebody some time ago approach me that they felt they were being imposed upon by unknown entities. All right, and they were not especially proficient in the esoteric sciences, and they wanted a suggestion for something that would be a protection of light. All right, and so I recommended the Kabbalistic cross, and I explained to them how to perform it, and that they could do it just anywhere. If they felt that they were being impinged upon, they could just do it wherever they were at. Creative visualization is engendered in the protection that the Kabbalistic cross provides. And if once you do it, you should feel an air of peace flow through you, because you're the center of that cross that extends upward, downward, outward into infinity. And it's that sense of peace that carries out.
And it also, if you say, if you're not of the Christ-like, believe, is that?
Be gone.
Yeah, you can do, it boils down to what you feel is effective for you,
What works for you?
what works for you. Some
So you
people,
could just picture a shield that expands and pushes it all away.
yeah.
And that's,
Or you have two energy fields that surround the physical body. You have the auric, and then you have the etheric energy field. You can fill your etheric energy field with white light. You just visualize this energy egg filling with white light.
I do actually every night
Yeah.
before I go to sleep. With white light.
Yeah, that's a good idea, right before you go to sleep.
You know, now, in the longest regard, I would inject this. Keep it simple.
I do.
I knew somebody many years ago who if they fell into a river, would drown from the sheer weight of talismans, amulets, and everything that they wore for protection. I mean, when they walked, they jingled and jangled, literally. Present company excluded. But I mean, they were, oh no, that's nothing. That would rank you as an amateur in comparison. And this person actually owned an occult shop, and so had access to all those talismans. Oh, yes. And I mean, you know, you seen Mr. T with all his gold and whatnot? Rank amateur in comparison.
you have to have one of everything just in case.
Yeah, just in case. Well, it's like in the Mummy series where they meet that one guy in the first Mummy movie where he's an Arab and he's confronted by the mummy, and then he starts pulling out these talismans and doing all these recitations, you know, prayers and incantations, and hoping to find one that's going to work. You know? He's just pulling them out left and right.
And the money keeps on
Yeah. And then he comes across one in Hebrew, the old Hebrew, and the mummy, of course, recognizes that Hebrew prayer and takes the guy on as a helper as opposed to being a victim, which the guy rather preferred to be that way, you know. But, you know, it's a matter of, like I say, you have to feel that it works for you. All right, and that's the key. The simpler, the better. And you know, long recitations are not necessary. My mentors, bless their souls, they did a sealing of their property every evening. I mean, they did a circle around their property every evening. They got out there and they cast a circle, and they sprinkled salt on the four quarters every evening religiously. And I said, Mom, Pop, why are you doing that? I have to. I said, why? Well, I got to do it every day to protect ourselves. Look, if you do it once and you're comfortable that it's effective, why do you have to keep reinforcing it? As long as you know it's effective, it'll work.
So if it doesn't matter what we pick, doesn't that mean that we're just picking something that comforts our conscious?
No, because we're all individuals. I mean, what works for me wouldn't work for you. Because we're working on vastly different scales. But see, I don't do that protection. I don't have to.
I don't.
Are you trying to ask what it's effective against, no matter
Okay.
what you're saying?
What I'm saying is,
I know where your
I don't
head's
feel
at.
like I have to either, and so it seems like if I do, like when I do, if it comes upon me and I feel like I have to, isn't that just my? I'm not sure there's anything I need to protect myself from. Like,
Yeah, well-
isn't that just my fears? And I'm placating my fears by imagining that I'm doing something when I don't even have to do anything.
Well, it's like, you know, if it gets to the point where it's like an opiate, you know, it's not doing any good. If you're comfortable, I mean, it's like if you go home this evening and you do a creative visualization of a sphere of white light surrounding your property or whatever surrounding you, and creating that you're comfortable that it's working for and will work for you, and you don't need to do any other work. You generate it, you let it go. And if the next day you feel it's still working, don't worry about it. Because as long as you're the conscious thought behind it, you're the architect of it. And if you become uncomfortable with its effectiveness, or you think you're becoming uncomfortable with it, it may be an illusion that you're creating for yourself, when in actuality you're questioning what you're doing, your effectiveness of what you're doing. And
So-
you shouldn't do that. You should do it and be confident that it's going to work and do what you need it to do, and let it go. Because as soon as you start questioning it, well, then you start.
If you start calling it back in, you're giving it like a negative.
Well, you start tearing down. It's like building a house.
Poking
you know.
holes in it.
Yeah, you put holes in it. You're building a house. You put the side on. You start taking the side off again. You know, as you're thinking about it. So you create it, be comfortable that it's working for you, and then let it go. Now, initially, there may be periods where you may feel like you may need to give a little booster shot. It's okay. But after, I can say with perfect confidence that after 40 years, it's working. I don't even have to think about it. It's there. And it doesn't have to be on all the time. It clicks on when it's necessary.
Well, I think there's a lot, sometimes it depends on our exterior world too, because if we're around a lot of negative people, then, you know, we're going to feel like we probably need to put our shields up a little more.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
I do home health, so it's like I
Mhm.
walk into one and then I walk into another client that, you know, and I have to show myself because it's after walking this.
Especially if
I
you're a
love it to
caring
death.
person, yeah. If you're a caring person and you're
Yeah,
giving, you know,
and they're complaining about somebody else. Because my mother couldn't be around her brother because of the negativity
Yeah.
that he would. And she would just shake. And finally she said, I can't be around you.
Yeah, well, you know, as a comedic side, many years ago, I was invited to a Halloween party in Atlanta, and I went as Rasputin. I had made my own monk's robe with a cowl and everything, and I went to this. I had been invited. It was sort of a semi-corporate thing, so I went, and I wasn't drinking. I didn't drink, and this one lady approached me who was a little bit in her cups. And she struck up a conversation with me, and after a couple of minutes, she put her hands up to her face, like you're real. Well, we're running. It's about time to close out because they want us to close out by 4:45.
about 5 till.
Oh, okay.
5 till.
So, you know, if there's any other comments or questions, please feel free to bring them up. And like I say, next week, we'll start with the next lesson 4, and since it'll be a full session, I will work up the copies for lesson 5, and we will see that those get distributed to you appropriately, okay?
I do have a question. I don't
Okay.
know if it's off track or what, but a lot of people that I've heard before are constantly warning about the dark side, the dark side. Doesn't that fear draw energies like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
into people?
Like attracts like. Yeah. You know, if, you know, the thing about this universe is it's a property-oriented universe. Where you have light, you have darkness. And somebody once quipped a long time ago that one cannot know the light until one has traversed the darkness. And in the initiatory rites of the Great Pyramid, the initiate entered through the paws of the Sphinx. And once they entered into the underworld. There was no backing out. They had to go through or die. And they literally traveled through the underworld and the perils of darkness before they emerged into the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid, which then they became one with the light. So unless there is unfortunately in the material universe, to have a basis of comparison, you have to have something to compare it to. You can't have positive without negative. You can't have light without the dark.
Duality.
Yeah, duality,
But if
exactly.
you constantly dwell on it.
But see, that's the thing.
You pull it in, right?
Well, you draw that energy in, but the thing of it is, it's like, you need to experience, there's nothing says that you can avoid the darkness, but you don't have to be a victim of it, because you recognize it for what it is, and you're always aspiring toward the light.
Yeah,
Darkness is an unescapable fact of the physical world. I mean, that's just the nature of the world, duality, like you were saying. But it doesn't have to command you.
And like you were saying about the focus, I mean, isn't it true that what we focus on, if we're focusing on it consciously, it's gonna leak into our subconscious, and then we're gonna manifest it.
Yeah.
We're gonna start manifesting it.
You're living
And
fears.
drawing it to you, and
What you're looking for, you'll find. You know, sort of like just to delve into science fiction, it's like Luke when he first began his studies as a Jedi. He was on training, with
Ben,
Yoda.
Yoda, and he started having a sense of darkness. All right, and it was a cave that Yoda said, you have to go there. And he went in there and he felt absolute darkness, absolute evil, and he had to confront it. But he did it in such a way that he failed, because when he conquered it, it was himself. So what you go looking for, you'll find. If you create it, you will find it. So why create it? The world has negativity in it, there's no question about that. How you deal with it will determine how effective you can be. And however you deal, if you turn on white light, project white light, or take up a sword off the wall and fight it, or whatever you do that works for you, that's what you do.
That's part of our reason for being here, right, is to.
Well, you're here to learn.
Confront it and learn how to deal with it,
Right, because ultimately, I'm of the school of thought that ultimately, once you learn everything that you need to learn here, you don't have to come back here. I mean, this is not exactly Broadway, In some aspects, it's like a cesspool of the universe. But you come here to learn, and if you want to come back to teach, you do. But there are other worlds and other.
I think we are a teacher and a student at all times.
Well, always, oh yeah. Some people have addressed me as master. Well, I only know what I know, but I'm still a student. I've been at it for over 40 years, but I'm in intense study. But I'm just a student, and always will be, because I'm looking for that ultimate answer. Until I find it, I'm still going to be a student. Because the more you know, the more you'll find out that you don't know. Okay, well, we can wrap that up and, do ad hoc questions or whatever you want to talk about. Or wet our whistles. And I opt for wetting a whistle.
there was something on like the second page. It was silent thought brings something true, and I didn't get the word that, I just wanted it. I think it was on the second page of this lesson.
I don't see the reference that you're talking about.
Yeah, let's get interesting. Okay. Well, what pages were today?
All the way in the back.
Okay, so.
And we're looking at 11 through 15.
The library will be closing in 10 minutes. If you're wanting to check out materials, you bring it to the circulation desk at this time. The library will be closing in 10 minutes.
Nikki,
Yeah?
if you find it, why don't you call me?
Oh.
So So we can go ahead and start rolling this, getting everything put back together here for the library staff.